All right, all right. Hey, what's happening, everyone? How are you? Welcome to Woo, Unpack This with your host, the authentic coach, Gloria Bailey Ray. Guys, this is a great day. I can't even believe it's already December, what is it, the 4th? And we are full stream into it. So I want to welcome you to my new podcast. I'm excited. And again, this is Unpack This. It's where authenticity is my superpower, and it should be yours as well. So I'm excited to have you guys here. Today, you know what? We're going to talk about clarity, which is your gift, and we're going to dive into some stuff, truth that I wish someone had told me decades ago. Now, listen, here's the deal. You can make comments at times. I'll bring you onto the screen. But the key thing is we're going to unpack and talk about you don't need to be needed in order to be worthy. And some of us are walking around and feeling that that's the only way it's supposed to happen. So let's unpack that for a moment. Let that just settle in with you, right? uh, I don't need to be worthy to be needed. And so many of us are living that. We're living that lie. We're living, what's going on. Miss Carolyn, what's happening? Glad to see you here. And we just really need to be real. Let's get real, you guys, with what is really happening, what's going on in our lives. So many of us, especially women, nurturers, helpers, fixers, achievers, guess what? We were taught the exact opposite when it comes to, um, you know, that our worth, that it comes from what we can do for other people. And, I don't know about you, but again, something that I learned even as a child. So just as we go through, think about this, from how much we give, how much we sacrifice, how indispensable we make ourselves. So today, what I'm hoping we're going to do is we're going to take off that armor. We're going to unlearn this lie that we have been living with for so long. And it is my hope that all of you, and that includes me, I'm still a work in progress, that we're stepping into a new kind of wholeness. So I want to encourage you to grab your journal, grab your tea, your coffee, a quiet moment, because today's conversation might just shift the way you see yourself. That's right. So, again, we're going to just be talking about unpacking when being needed became the standard. And I know for me, when I look back on my own life across relationships, workplaces, friendship, there was a pattern that I couldn't see while I was living it, right? A pattern I couldn't see because I was in it. I'm main character. I had a deeply ingrained belief that being needed made me valuable. Think about that for a moment. And if I wasn't holding everything together, if I wasn't fixing, solving, guiding, or rescuing, I felt like I wasn't enough. Any of y'all feel like that? Any of you guys can relate to that? Because it's real. Think about it. Just let that settle in your spirit for a moment. Think about it. And here's the crazy thing. I felt like I wasn't enough. And it didn't start in adulthood. It started in childhood. Think back. Like many of you, I learned early on that love was something earned. Hmm. And it was earned through performance, through responsibility, through being the strong one, the dependable one, the one who doesn't complain, the one who always shows up. Yeah, that was me. Y'all, you guys feel me on that? So fast forward to adulthood, and guess what? It became my identity. Hmm. In relationships, I stayed too long. You feel me on that? At jobs, I worked twice as hard. In friendships, I poured more than I ever received. And I confused my usefulness with my worth. That's why we're unpacking. You don't need to be worthy, you know, to be needed. It just, you know, doesn't doesn't compute. So I asked myself questions like, what else can I do? How can I make them happy? What do they need from me? But the crazy thing, y'all, I never ask, do I feel seen? Do I feel valued? Do I feel safe? That realization, it didn't come overnight. It came from heartbreak, exhaustion, repeated lessons, and this loud internal whisper that said, Gloria, there has to be a better way. And for many of us, depending on where you grew up, and actually it really doesn't matter whether you in the South, East, Midwest, there are still, I think what we're unpacking today, so many people can relate to it. It's relatable. It doesn't matter where you're rich, poor, uh, smart, or not. It's about being able, um, to unpack, understanding that you don't have to be needed to be worthy. So let go with me on this for a minute. Let's talk about what we learned in childhood about worthiness. Let's talk about the root. See, most of us, we didn't wake up at age 30, 40, or 50 deciding I want to overfunction. I didn't. I want to be the savior. Did you wake up like that? I want to carry the emotional labor of everybody in the room. No, Those are survival skills we learned early on. So maybe you grew up in a household where love was inconsistent. You had to manage other people's moods. You became the peacemaker or the caretaker. You were praised only when you were helpful, strong, or responsible. Y'all feeling me on this? Can you relate to this? This is why it's so important that we learn to unpack all this that we have been taught, that we have learned over the years, right? You learn to earn approval instead of receiving affection, and the affection should have been given freely. Okay? So I'm just going to ask you, if you got your journals or you got some thoughts, let me hear it, because I'm going to ask you to let those lessons sink in deep. Let them sink in and find yourself. So many of us are so busy moving and going here to that we've never taken the time to unpack the stuff that's built up and backed up within us, and we don't understand what is really happening. So that's why we're show is called Unpack This. So if you've let those lessons sink deep, and if they've shaped your adult lives without you even knowing it, I'm going to tell you, you holding on to some stuff. When love feels conditional as a child, you carry that belief system into every relationship. If you think I'm lying, just reflect. Reflect on yourself, reflect on people you know, just think about that for a moment. Dive into it, unpack it, be okay with it. You become the adult who tries to prevent conflict. You become the adult who anticipates needs. You sense other people's emotions faster than your own. What's wrong with this picture? Right? So I got a question for you. Who of you believes that if you stop giving, they will stop staying? Anybody relate to that? If you stop giving, they will stop staying. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, what were they there for in the first place, right? For what they could draw from you, what they could get from you. That's why we must unpack all this crap that we have been living with for years. And some of us aren't unpacking until our 60s, 70s, 80s, but at least you are unpacking it. I hear you. I've heard from many of you that say, hey, it's taken me into my 70s to realize that I am worthy. And guess what? I don't need to be needed to be worthy, right? So if you're still believing that if you stop giving, they will stop staying, then you got to let them kick rocks, right? So when you think about it, this is really how we internalize the idea that being needed actually equals being worthy. But hear me clearly. Those lessons were never about your worth. Honestly, they were basically about survival. They were about what kept you safe at that point in time. And it's that same thing that's holding you back right now. So ask yourself, how does being needed show up in my adult relationships? So I'm going to ask you to let's get real about this pattern as it shows up today. And maybe this is you. This pattern shows up in romantic relationships. How you become the giver, the fixer, the healer. You stay even when you're drained because you've built this identity around being the strong one. I don't know about y'all, but I just decided I'm tired. There's a folks, I was tired, of being strong. Because guess what? Strong people need support and need help too, right? Strong people need to know that if they falter, if they fall, there's someone there to catch them, lift them up, prop them back up. But many times that is not even the case. Remember, the givers keep giving and the givers get taken. That's the reality. So if you think about at work, thinking that that's going to make you what them uh, like you, see you as worthy. You do the work of 3 people. You find out you're the team therapist, and I can relate to that, right? People love to unload. They unload all their garbage on me, and guess what? I'm carrying around like a dump truck because you have allowed that. At work, you're not only the team therapist, you're really the unofficial manager, that person that everybody calls first. But check this, in friendships, you're the anchor. You're the listener, the nurturer, the one who gets a text when a friend needs something, but rarely when they want to pour back into you. That's the reality. Those people that talk about support, they support you, but they don't support you in your endeavors. They don't support you in your projects. They don't support you. Even if you ask them to buy a $5 coffee, they don't support you. And so, you're the one that you're just pouring out, pouring out, pouring out, but you're not getting filled back up. That's why you need to unpack this mess that you're carrying around, right? That's real. And then let's take it a step further. Even in families, in your family, you're the glue. You're the mediator, the one who shows up, even when it costs you. And whether that's costing you of your time, your peace, or just your emotional energy, y'all, it's time to just stop. And for me, stop, STOP, means stop tripping on people. That's it. Because you show up so well, guess what? People come to expect that. They expect it. And what happens is sometimes they stop seeing your humanity and they only see your function. Whew, that's deep. That is straight up deep, right? So I asked the question, how many of you can recall people saying, she'll handle it, she's strong, she'll figure it out. And here's the thing, she doesn't need anything. Wow. For me, in writing my 3rd book, When to Get Up from the Table, see, it's not just about love. Getting up from the table is about relationship. Getting up from the table is about you, honoring yourself. And let me ask you this. What happens when you need something, when you need support, when you need rest? Guess what? There's nothing but silence, crickets, crickets. And why is that? Because you've trained the world to believe you don't need anything. Yeah, that's on you. But I'm here to tell you, beloved, your strength, it's not your identity. Hear me when I say that. Your usefulness is not your worth. And your ability to show up, it's not the measure of your value. Somebody somewhere is starting to realize that they really don't have to be needed to be worthy. Now, let me shift for a moment and talk about the cost of overfunctioning, or what we call shape shifting, right? When you talk about the cost of constantly being the needed one, here's what it takes from you. And hear me when I say this. First of all, it drains your emotional and your spiritual energy. Why? You're always on. You're always aware, always anticipating. That's labor, guys. And it eventually leads to burnout, or better yet, resentment, right? Second thing about always constantly being needed, it attracts people who take, not people who reciprocate. Whew, unpack that. People who take, but not people who reciprocate. Here's why. Because when you're given 150%, you start attracting people who only gonna give you 10%. And you're lucky at best. Here's the other piece. It also, when you are over functioning, it silences your needs. What do you mean? If you're always meeting everyone else's needs, who's managing yours? Look, that's a quote that's newsworthy. The other thing is it creates relationships that's really and truly built on an imbalance. And what do I mean by that? See, love becomes a transaction. Your value becomes your output. And for me, I had to learn that's not love. That's emotional labor disguised as devotion. Think about that, you guys. Emotional labor disguised as devotion. The other thing that happens when you think about the cost of overfunctioning or shape shifting is it erodes your identity. You begin to lose sight of who you are when you're not performing. And I'm going to ask you to ask yourself this question. If I wasn't needed, would I know who I am? Ouch. Would I still feel valuable? Would I believe that I matter? See, this is the heart of today's conversation because freedom arrives when you actually realize that you deserve rest without guilt, love without earning, and relationships without over functioning. Gen Zs, y'all hear this? Listen, the crux of all of this is this: reclaiming your worthiness. And how do you do that? Well, in reclaiming your worthiness, in my opinion, there are 3 transformation shifts. Let's talk about healing. Let's talk about reclaiming your worth. And not from a place of performance, but from your soul, right? So when I think about what would be my top 3 transformative shifts that help you and myself step back into being my authentic self, the first shift, number 1, is replace I am valuable because they need me with I am valuable because I exist. Worthiness is innate. It's not earned, not bargained for, and not conditional. Just keep saying, write in your journal, I am enough even when I am not being needed, because you are. Then shift number 2, I think you got to choose relationships where support is mutual. And a lot of times what I have found is that we fall into these relationships and we do a lot of giving and expecting. And that's why many of us get upset when it's not a mutual return, right? So when you think about choosing relationship where support is mutual, first thing is you stop carrying the emotional load. Just that simple. You stop being everyone's crisis manager. And I, for one, can definitely relate to that. You need to start to allow people to show up for you. You let people earn access to your energy. And the operative word is earn, right? See, healthy love flows in both directions. No question about that. And the third shift is you got to learn to reintroduce yourself to you. This may sound simple, but it is life changing. And I know that for a fact, right? You got to ask yourself, what do I want? You guys ever do that? What do I want? What do I feel? And sit with that. What do I need when I'm not performing? This is about you reconnecting to your desires, to your boundaries, your joy, your inner voice. And some of us are so busy and have so much stuff going on, you can't hear the inner voice, right? You are more than the roles you play. You are more than the responsibilities that you carry. You are more than the strength people praise you for. You are a whole person. You are worthy without effort, without over-functioning, without providing a single thing. And we got to learn to be okay with that. I used to think that all the people all these people got all these friends and all that. Most of them, you'll find out they're frenemies. Others, you'll find out they're sucking you dry. As long as you're there for them to dump all of their cares, woes, whatever on you, and they move on. But it's not reciprocal, you guys. So here's the deal. As I end today's session, I want you to hold this truth about you. First of all, you don't have to be needed to be worthy. You don't have to be strong to deserve love. You don't have to forgive or overgive. You don't have to overgive to be seen. You don't have to perform to belong. Your worth doesn't rise and fall with how much you can do for other people. It rises from within you. It's who you are, not what you give. So, if this conversation resonated with you, I invite you to dive deeply into chapter 4 and 7 of my book, When to Get Up from the Table When Love is Not Being Served. Because this is the journey, reclaiming your power, rewriting the rules, and walking away from the tables where your worth is overlooked. If today's message blessed you, share the episode with a friend who needs this reminder. And as always, I encourage you guys to stay authentic, stay grounded, and remember, your worth is not up for negotiations. So tune in next week as I dive into rebound relationship, something that probably so many of us can actually relate to, right? So it's, for me, it is powerful, it's important, and I just feel that we've got to unpack all of the stuff that's been going on and happening to us. So I hope you will join me, tell others, let's build this particular podcast up. It's always about unpack. The title, Unpack This, So we're going to unpack some stuff. And until this time, next Friday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Central Time, and 2 p.m. Eastern Time, be sure, guys, join me. Be there, or as they would say, be square. I'm so glad you were here. I'm sending you peace and love. Take care, guys.